this last lecture is going to be pretty short. It's about the choosing the right test lecture, and I'm going to have a really short lab for you on this too. I don't have a PowerPoint slide for this. Instead, if you look under lectures, I have this choosing the right test, and I have given you a couple of flow charts. So I'm just going to go through these flow charts with you so you know how to read them, and then you can use these to help you with the lab and for exam 3 and the final if you choose to take it. So I made a couple different flowcharts based on looking at your tests a different way. So the question here is, what test do I run? What statistical test am I going to run for my scenario? So on this flowchart, it's looking at the variables and what type they are. So first you look at your DV, your outcome variable, and you ask yourself if it's categorical or it's continuous. We haven't studied categorical ones yet, but if it was categorical, you would come over here and you would do a chi-squared. I was hoping to do chi-squared this semester, but we didn't get to it, so we'll do that in 209. So that makes things easier for you. It means your DV is always going to be continuous. So if the answer is continuous, you go over here. Now you look at your IVs. Is your IV categorical or is it continuous? If your IV is also continuous, you go down here and you ask yourself, am I making a prediction or not? If you're not making a prediction, then you're doing a correlation. If you are making a prediction, you're doing a regression. So go back up here. If your IV is categorical, you go this way instead, and you ask yourself, how many levels is it? If it's 2 levels, then the next question you need to ask yourself is, are my tests dependent on one another? Do they rely on one another? If they are not dependent on each other, then you're running an independent t-test. If they are dependent on each other, you're running a dependent t-test. So go back here, back to the how many levels question. If you have more than 2 levels, you go this way, and it asks, are the tests given more than once? Okay, again, are they dependent? So if the tests aren't given more than once to the same participants, it's a one-way ANOVA. If they are given more than once to the same participants, it's a repeated measures ANOVA. So this flowchart is based on whether your variables are categorical or continuous, and it helps you choose which test. Okay, the other flowchart you've been seeing in the lectures, I wanted to give you the whole thing here. This just asks you more based on your research question. So are you examining relationships between variables, or are you examining the difference between groups? So if you're looking at relationships, then it asks you how many variables are you dealing with. Okay. If it's 2 variables, you're looking for a correlation coefficient. Don't worry about this t-test part. Focus on the correlation coefficient, so you're running a correlation. If it's more than 2 variables, don't worry about it. We haven't gotten to there yet. It would be a multiple regression, which we haven't done yet, or these other things. So don't really worry about this part of it. Okay. So now go back up here. Are you examining relationships or difference between groups? I'm examining difference between groups. Okay. Then it asks you, are the participants being tested more than once? If they are, then it asks you how many groups you're dealing with. If it's 2 groups, it's a dependent t-test. If it's more than 2 groups, it's a repeated measures ANOVA. Okay. Back up here, are the same participants being tested more than once? If it's a no, then again it asks you how many groups. If it's 2, it's an independent t-test. If it's more than 2, it's a simple ANOVA or a one-way ANOVA. Okay. So these flowcharts are all I really wanted you to have, and I wanted to walk you through them. And you're just going to use these flowcharts when you're trying to decide which test you want to run. So ask yourself, what is the research question asking, and are my variables categorical or continuous? And then you're going to be asking yourself how many groups you're dealing with. So that's all there is to this lecture. These, again, are located here under lectures. Be sure to download these so you have them for your reference.